Tancred of Hauteville was a Norman lord living in the 10th and 11th centuries with no claim to fame or great wealth to his name by medieval standards. He was one of those characters who would have remained obscure from the pages of history had it not been for the astounding accomplishments of his sons, which would see the creation of a new nation. Today we're going to discuss his eldest son, William Ironarm, and his successes in Italy, as well as the beginning of the expansion of the Norman state in Sicily. If that sounds interesting, let's hop into it. Now, before we begin, I release a new video on my Norman vs. Mongol podcast every Wednesday, so make sure you're subscribed so you get the content as soon as it releases. Also, let me know what other warriors you would like me to put against each other next. And these are what-if scenarios, so please don't say what would happen if the Romans fought the Gauls, because those things happen. These are what-if scenarios between two, legends or two very tough empires that did not face each other, and what kind of, playing field it would be. Are we talking a single battle? Or are we talking a full-scale war? And also let me know in the comments below who you think would win this matchup and why. Do you think the Mongols would win a long war between the two nations, or do you think the Normans would end up dominating? So to start, William Ironarm was born in the late 11th century in Normandy to Tancred of Hauteville and his first wife, Mariella. He was the eldest son, and he would wind up becoming Count of Apulia from 1043 to 1046 AD, some say 1042, around that same era. But before that, he was just a young, ambitious, and energetic man who wanted to earn his wealth through combat. And at the time, in the turmoil of the 11th century, Italy was the place to do it. The reason for this being that Italy at the time was a combination. It had a whole bunch of diverse races. You had Muslims, you had Greeks, you had Romans, also known as the Byzantines. But I think what people don't realize is at that era, a lot of the Byzantines called themselves Romans. And then you had the Normans also, and you also had the Lombards. Now the Lombards had conquered Italy in the earlier centuries, but they no longer were the ultimate power in that area. And in 1017, they actually rebelled against Byzantine, trying to press the Roman Empire out and establish themselves as an independent state. Involved in this conflict was a man named Ranulf, who was a Norman. And everything was going well until 1018, where the Normans were soundly defeated at the Battle of Cannae. 250 Normans had gathered together to help the Lombards in this rebellion, and out of 250, only 10 escaped with their life. Ranulf, however, was one of these men who escaped alive, and he remained in the country for the next 2 decades, or decade and a half, and sold his sword to whoever was willing to pay him, and had established himself as a strong lord. He sent out letters in the 1030s to Normandy telling all the young men, like William and his younger brother Drogo, hey, if you guys want to earn some money by fighting, come on down to Italy, because it's a place to do it, and we've got plenty of money and plenty of gold that we can earn from the Byzantines by fighting whoever they want us to fight. So William and Drogo answer the call. They leave Normandy and they go to Italy, and they sell their swords actually not to Ranulf but to Pandulf, who is also another man, also known as Pandulf the Iron Head or the Wolf of Abrizia, a man worthy of his own podcast. If you'd like to see me research him and do a podcast on him as well, tell you about his story, leave a comment down below and I will do so. They sell their swords to him, and he wants to, because he was stronger, he was the more powerful lord in southern Italy, and he wants to control the entire peninsula. He wants to have complete control over it. So he winds up going to war with Gaimar V, whose father Pandulf had pushed around pretty easily, but the son was made of tougher stuff, and the two wind up clashing. Now in this conflict, William and his brother Drogo actually learned for 3 years, from 1035 to 1038. In this war, they sharpened their swords, fighting not only against other Lombards and Byzantines, but also Normans, because Gaimar and Pandulf both hired Normans as mercenaries. So to let you know, if there wasn't this, people talk about the cult of chivalry and stuff, whoever was willing to pay you at the time, that's who you fought for, and it didn't really matter to the Normans being involved. Their political goals were not like the men hiring them, who wanted to have complete control of this area. They were there to make money. Yes, they did want control overall, but they weren't picking sides. All the Normans were fighting on one side against another. Normans fought each other in this conflict. However, Conrad II, the Holy Roman Emperor, wanted the conflict to end, so in 1038, he showed up and said, okay, fight's going to stop. I give Gaimar power of this area, and Pandulf, you are his subject. So Pandulf was subject to Gaimar. After that, and the conflict ended in 1038 between these two officially. They still didn't like each other, but the Pope had showed up and did what he had to do to gain control of the area. Sorry, not the Pope, my bad. The Emperor showed up and laid down the law. Now, at the same time, while this was going on, Leo, in the court of Constantinople, seeing how power was going over to Conrad inside of Italy, wanted to reinstate Byzantine control in Sicily. which had been overrun by the Muslims in 1035 and was no longer in his control. So he hired the fearsome commissioned the fearsome George Maniakes to do it. And George Maniakes was an extremely great warrior. He was a man who led from the front, extremely well disciplined, and was known for a famous temper. And he was just made of tough stuff, the old Roman stuff. He was, from that era that's gone but not forgotten. People often say time forgotten. It wasn't forgotten by them. The Byzantines identify themselves as Romans. I did learn in history class that if you called a Byzantine, to some of them it was seen as an insult. They wanted to be called, no, we're the Eastern Roman Empire, and we survived when the West failed. So, George Maniakes gathers his forces in 1038 at Apulia, and he orders the Prince of Salerno. He hires 300 Normans from them, and among these Normans are led by Arduin, who was a Lombard prince, or Principate, and he brings with him William and Drogo, who by this point are already distinguished fighters in his troop. So between 1035 and 1038, they had already earned a reputation for being fierce warriors, and they're mentioned here because of that. So George Maniakes' campaign lasts for 2 years, and it sees two great battles, in both of which the Muslim forces under Abdallah are utterly defeated. Both of these battles, that is where William earns the epithet Iron Arm. He rushes headfirst into the enemy and clashes with them and annihilates them, charging fearlessly into them and just defeats them ferociously. On one account, it does say that he engaged in personal combat with an emir of the enemy and kills him in front of his troops. So he earns the respect not only of the Lombards and his own Normans, but also of the Byzantines as a fierce warrior. And like I said, that's where he gets the epithet Iron Arm from. However, another William of Apulia, not William Iron Arm, different guy, was not impressed by the Normans in combat at all, and felt that the Greeks had done a much better job on the field of battle. And he even insulted Arduin and said, "Well, your troops didn't impress me, so I'm not satisfied with what you did here." So after that, Rainulf, the man who initially called the Normans over in the first place, says, "Hey, guys, the Lombards, the rebellion that started in 1017, those dreams of freedom had not died in the Lombard hearts. So they wind up saying, let's overthrow the Byzantines and push them all out and gain complete control of Italy ourselves." And William and Drogo think about it, probably for a hot second, and say, okay, we're in. So in 1040, they seize Venosa and Melfi, building a stronghold at the latter, and gathered 500 Norman knights together. Now, in the spring the following year, the Norman-Lombard coalition met and did battle with Docianus, the catapan of that area, and he had brought with him a Varangian guard, with which he hoped to defeat the Normans, and the Normans annihilated him. He didn't stand a chance. His army was overthrown. He was pushed back. He fled the field. In May, the same year, 1042, they gathered again at the Battle of Montemajorme. This time, both sides had been reinforced. The Normans no longer had 500 knights. They now had 2,000. The same for the Byzantine force. It had grown as well. This time, though, they were wiped out yet again by the Normans. Now, George Maniakes would have been able to defeat them, but he was busy because he also had rebelled against Constantinople and its authority. That's a video for another day. If you want me to do a video on George Maniakes, please comment down below, and I will do so. So after the victories, the victorious Lombards gathered together in 1042 and said, okay, well, let's divide our spoils amongst ourselves. So they elected 12 chiefs, 12 men to have power over the area. Two of these men were William and his younger brother Drogo. William was given Ascoli, and that's where he became Count in 1042. The following year, in 1043, he was named Count of Apulia. Now, he was already a count by this point, but he became Count of Apulia, and what that meant was he had complete power over all the territory that the Normans had conquered, and he would be allowed to elect barons and baronies. In other words, if you would say, I want to give this, I conquered another, let's just say, for example, another mile of territory, and I'm going to build 2 castles here, well, he would give you permission to commission your barons to do so, to control that territory. So, basically, those are William Ironarm's successes. He wound up dying 4 years later he wound up dying in 1045. Some say 1046. People aren't positive when the era he died, but within the next few years, he's dead, and his brother Drogo takes over. So, William showed up, fought for Pandulf against Gaimar, fought for Gaimar and Pandulf against the Muslims, and they wound up fighting against the Byzantines ran off and became count. Now, in all these battles, of course, you can clearly see that he was extremely successful. He was a man who led from the front, didn't show fear in battle, showed extremely great courage, and this was something that the Normans were known for. It's the reason the Lombards and the Byzantines and the Greeks, all those guys, hired them as warriors, because they knew they could fight. They could put up a very good fight, and they're worth their weight in gold. Obviously, they even defeated the Varangian Guard in both the battles. Rhodosianus faced William Ironarm, Arduin, and his troops. He brought a Varangian Guard with him, and both times they were soundly defeated by the Normans. And remember, William of Hulia, who was leading the Greek army, was saying, "Oh, I'm not impressed by these guys at all." But those guys wound up turning around and defeating the best troops that Constantinople had to offer against them. So obviously, they probably took that insult a little personally, and he never should have made it in the first place. So that is William Ironarm. Next week, Wednesday, we are going to be doing a video on Genghis Khan and his early successes in combat. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notification. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. I got to get back to work. And let me know who you want to see fight next, and comment down below who do you think would win, Mongols or Normans. I want to know who's here. I want to know whose side you're on.